Welcome to the Tabletop Empire. My name is Nate, and today we'll be covering everything that you need to know about gear in Star Wars RPG. I am getting over being sick, and I don't really have the energy to stand in front of a camera for this one. It's kind of long, so this is a little bit of a different style. Let me know in the comments if you like it or not. This is a bulky section, so let's just dive straight on into it. So first, we will be talking about encumbrance. Generally, and depending on the GM, players do not need to track encumbrance, but it exists to sometimes play an important part of the story or prevent completely unrealistic situations, like trying to carry 10 blaster rifles at once after defeating a small battalion of stormtroopers. You looter players, you know who you are. For those who are maybe unfamiliar with what encumbrance is, it's an item's weight, bulk, or mass, and how easy is it to carry, and each item will have a number representing this. Each player has an encumbrance threshold, which indicates how much you can carry. Typically, it's going to be 5 plus your brawn, which can be increased by items like backpacks. If it becomes important, 10 incidental items or items with 0 encumbrance will add up to 1 encumbrance. If stored effectively, such as crystals in a pouch, then 20 incidental items will equal 1 encumbrance. If a PC is above their encumbrance threshold, then they are encumbered, and they add a setback dice to every brawn or agility check on top of any other setback dice that they may be required to roll. If you are encumbered by an amount equal or greater than your brawn, then you lose your free maneuver each turn. The player character can still take 2 maneuvers per turn, but each maneuver costs 2 strain. So if your threshold is at 8, and your brawn is 3, you would lose the ability to maneuver for free at 11 encumbrance or more. Players shouldn't typically try to carry more than their encumbrance threshold, but sometimes the situation can call for it. If the player needs to lift an object greater than their encumbrance, such as trying to carry a couch from a trash compactor to your ship, or carrying a wounded party member, then in this case you would roll athletics. For each point of encumbrance over the threshold, you add 1 purple die to the difficulty up to a daunting check of 4 purple dice. So to give an example of this, let's say you have a threshold of 8. A heavy object of 8 or less is a simple check. You only really need to roll if there's a setback dice. If it's a heavy object of 9 encumbrance, then it would be an easy check. 10 would be average, 11 would be hard, and 12 or more is daunting. If another player wants to help them, then they add their brawn rating to the encumbrance to that specific task. So let's say a Wookiee with 4 brawn would make that simple check start at 12 and less, with easy being 13 and average 14, etc. The books have more examples on this if you need it. So when you're trying to conceal items, any items that have an encumbrance of 1 or less can be hidden on your person easily. No roll required to hide said item unless a foe is inspecting you with something like a pat down. At that point, the searcher will make an opposed perception check against the hider. The searcher will also get a boost die for every encumbrance that you're trying to hide above a 1. Though the GM can modify concealed gear rules if the situation allows for it, and these rules can also be used and altered for other similar situations, such as hiding a blaster in a cargo container. So next, let's actually talk about actual gear and items. We'll start with weapons. Every weapon has characteristics that will make it unique and give the player more information on what the weapon can do. A lot of the in-depth details on these characteristics will come in the combat chapter, which starts in our next video after this one. Subscribe so you don't miss it, and while you're down there, don't forget to blast that like button. Starting out, there is the name of the weapon and the skill used to roll it. Then there is the base damage, which is the minimum damage you deal with a successful roll. Each extra success after you cancel out your failures will deal 1 extra damage. So if a blaster does 6 damage and you roll 2 success, then you hit for 7 damage. Next, we have range, which is the range of the weapon. Range in this game works in broad range bands. Brawl and melee weapons, as well as lightsabers, have the range of engaged. Ranged weapons have short, medium, long, and extreme ranges. Critical rating is how many advantages you need to roll in order to land a critical hit, which gives a critical injury. Hard points is how customizable the weapon is. The more hard points, the more attachments and modifications you can put on it. More details coming at the end of this video. Price and rarity we covered in our previous video on the economy, link in the description below, but pretty much price is how many credits it costs to buy it. If there's an R next to the price, then the item's restricted and it has to be found on the black market. And then rarity is going to be how hard or easy it is to find the item. And last but not least, we have special, which is special bonus rules that a weapon may possess. I'm not going to cover every single one of these because we'd be here forever, but you can find a list of these in the book in chapter 5. One example of this though is the stun setting, which lets you attack somebody's strain instead of their wounds if you maybe want to take a prisoner and not kill your target, but just knock them out. So the book has a little section on weapon maintenance, and the rules here are actually pretty easy. So when a player rolls a despair when trying to use the weapon, the GM can choose to say that the weapon has a malfunction of some kind. which means it will then need minor, moderate, or major repairs. Weapons are generally repaired with mechanics, but if the weapon has any circuitry or programming, then a computer's check is also allowed. When repairing a weapon, the player will need adequate time and tools to do so. Generally, 1 to 2 hours per difficulty level, and if the player does not have the proper tools, then it's 1 difficulty die harder. If the player is trying to hurry or on a time crunch, then you can also add difficulty for that as well. The cost of repairs is equal to a percentage of the base cost of the weapon because you have to buy new parts. This is the price whether you want to do it yourself or take it to a weaponsmith. However, when you attempt repairs yourself, you can lower the total cost by 10% for each advantage you roll in your repair check. The book will have a table with all the weapons listed as well as an extra block of information on that weapon. I will not be covering every individual item, but when you pick a weapon that you do like, find the corresponding info block somewhere on the pages around that table. Next up, let's talk about armor. Armor also has characteristics like price, encumbrance, hardpoints, rarity, and its name, as well as defense and soak. Defense is how much it adds to the character's defense rating. So if a character has 3 defense, then you would roll 3 setback dice when trying to attack them. And soak is just how much the armor adds to the player's soak value, which is just flat damage reduction when receiving any damage. So if you get hit for 7 damage and you have 5 soak, then you would only take 2 wounds. The encumbrance value that you see on the armor is pretty much only going to matter when you're carrying the armor and not wearing it, because when you're wearing it, you reduce the encumbrance by 3. For most armor, this would put it at 0 encumbrance while wearing it, but that's not the case for every single armor piece. Again, there is a table with armor options in your book and little info blocks on what each item in the book is as well. Next is gear and equipment. Each item here only has a name, encumbrance, price, and rarity. And these items are going to be split into a few categories: communications, poisons, detection devices, medical devices, cybernetic implants and whatnot, recreation and entertainment, security, survival, and lastly, tools. I think most of these are going to be pretty self-explanatory. However, if you want videos covering specifically these, let me know in the comments below. Again, there is a table in the book with all of these items, and there's info on every single item if you would like to know more. The book then goes into details on black market items with a lot of great information if you plan on running an underworld game. There's a table and a whole lot of information on different spice types, which spice is like drugs, but in Star Wars, as well as another small table with a few outlawed personal items. Again, all of these items have more specific info if something intrigues you. Now, the last section of this chapter is about customizations and modification. These can be ways to make the weapons unique, whether mechanically or just visually. Attachments are physical items that attach to the hardpoint slot of a weapon, ship, or other item. These just need to be bought and are typically considered an easy process to install, only needing a couple minutes of work. These attachments will give a slight bonus or edge, but that's about it. If you want to further customize your item, you will want to look at the modding system. Most attachments have a listed series of mods, which are just modifications that a mechanic can make to the attachment to improve whatever the item's performance is. And there are various different kinds of mods, including increased damage, adding a talent, increasing the item quality, bonuses to skills or characteristics, and more. To install a mod, the player will need to spend 100 credits on components and supplies, find a couple hours are not going to be interrupted, grab a toolkit, get to a workbench, and make a hard mechanics check. If you fail this check though, you do not complete the modification and you cannot try again. With the despair, the attachment you're modding is completely rendered unusable or broken. Each additional mod installed on an attachment after the first increases the difficulty by 1, as well as an extra 100 credits. There is a whole bit in this book with a table of all weapons and armor attachments and their available modifications, so take a look, get an idea of what kinds of attachments and mods may interest you. Ship attachments can be found in the Starships chapter of the book. I'm starting to lose my voice because I had to record this twice, but that is all for gear today, so thankfully I will not have to talk anymore. If you guys have any questions though, leave a comment down below. I will do my best to answer it. If you found the video helpful, please blast that like button, it really helps us out. And next video, we're going to start the chapter on combat. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and as always, may the force be with you.